Hello, we're Natalie and Abby, and you are listening to The Sensational Life with Bibic.
Join us to explore the many layers of life through unique and inspiring topics each week. Whether you're looking to better support yourself or others, we're here to provide insights, practical tips, and meaningful conversations.
Bibic is a national charity dedicated to empowering children and young adults with brain injuries, disabilities, and neurological or developmental challenges. We're both part of a fantastic team of developmental therapists. While our title might sound a bit fancy, it really just means that we're here to support children, young adults and families with helpful strategies for any challenges that they encounter.
There may be times we cover some difficult topics during this podcast, but we will always give you prior warning of this. We'll have some wonderful guest speakers joining us, and we can't wait to hear from you with all your questions and your own stories. Together, we can create a more inclusive and understanding world, one episode at a time.
Welcome back to our podcast. Just as a little heads up for you, we are still recording from last week. So Natalie is still feeling a little bit under the weather, aren't you?
I was going to say, I think we're a bit unrealistic for me to feel better after one.
30 minutes later, why are you not better?
So in podcast world, we are a week away from the last episode. In Abby's and Natalie's world, we're only 30 minutes or so we've got some time today, so we're smashing out these podcasts, aren't we? So yeah. Yes, I'm still ill. I'm hoping when you guys are listening to it, I am no longer ill, but yeah, we just thought I'd give you a bit of a disclaimer again, just to say I'm really sorry if I'm a little bit croaky and froggy. I won't blow my nose, I won't cough, I will do whatever I can.
We'll edit those bits out now, it'll be fine. So today we are going to be talking about impulsivity in relation to executive function. We also have a guest speaker on.
We do today.
We have our lovely colleague Eleanor, who's going to be coming in and talking to us about impulsive versus intrusive thoughts, because I think there's quite a misunderstanding between the two of them. So she's just coming on to explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, she's done some really great sort of research, hasn't she? And she we often do skill sessions in our team meetings, so she ran a skill session not long ago, sort of going into it a little bit more, and it was really quite insightful, because I think especially when it comes to impulsive thoughts and intrusive thoughts, the two do often get a little bit mixed up and muddled. So yeah, Eleanor will go a little bit more into that very shortly. We're excited for her to be here, aren't we?
But what is impulsivity? So when we're talking about this in regards to executive function in individuals, it's about that self-regulating behaviour, self-regulating your thoughts or even your emotions can be quite impulsive at times. Like the acting without thinking, struggling with that delay and that gratification for them, or having trouble considering what the consequences might be after they've made that decision. And I often talk about it with families that it's that in the moment thinking, like we've talked about executive function being. And in that moment, they don't have that little internal voice going, is that a good idea? I don't think last time you did that, you hurt yourself, or last time that happened, you got in trouble. It doesn't kick in that moment. So they can really struggle with that self-regulation of when they should be doing things and when they shouldn't.
Yeah, and I think also like key sort of responsibilities within sort of your executive function is having that self-restraint, that focus and that decision-making. And what happens when you sort of have struggles with that is I keep doing that. I did it in the last episode.
I mean, it is executive functioning.
I just get stuck in my head with that impulsivity side of things. Again, they might even sort of less so in terms of physical actions, but in verbal actions. I think me and you have kind of, we're learning it as we go through the podcast and not interrupt each other.
We try not to, but...
struggling to wait sort of their turn as well. So actually finding that they don't want to wait for that person to finish what they're doing because they've got an idea or they've got what they want to do is sort of in that moment and they want to share that with people. And I think sometimes that can be really difficult for those individuals because it's having that ability to stop, pause and think, but it's just not there with impulsivity.
No, it just doesn't kick in for them, does it? And like with that emotion side of things as well, you touched on the excitement, like they want to share things, they interrupt conversations. But on the emotional side of things, you've also got, I've interpreted something that someone said, and it might be that it's, I feel that it's hurt my feelings, or it might not have been very nice. And the impulsive emotion that's coming through might be to get angry, or the impulsive emotion might be to get sad or hurt, or those sorts of things, without thinking through kind of what the reasoning is behind that, whether that's actually a true thought, and that sort of thing.
And I think often with impulsivity, especially when it can come to neurodivergence, is there is still that crossover, and I think we keep touching on it, don't we, that actually executive functioning, and why we wanted to make it our first season, is because it's so fundamental within everything. So in terms of ADHD, actually impulsivity is one of those core behaviours that links to ADHD, because it's harder for them to sort of pause and think before acting. But actually when it comes to autism, you still have those impulsivity sort of tendencies, and a lot of the time they experience it particularly when it comes to emotional responses and reactions. So like Abby was saying, they haven't really had the opportunity to pause and think about what's happened, because they may have misunderstood it, or they may not have interpreted it the same, whereas maybe someone with ADHD, they might be more likely to interrupt or be more physical with their impulsivity. And I think sort of a lot of the time, again, impulsivity doesn't always have to be the action, it can be the emotion, it can be the thought as well. So I think, again, we've got a couple of sort of examples of sort of impulsivity in daily life as well. So things like sort of blurting things out in the classroom.
Yeah, those teens that just spend money as soon as they get it, and going, oh, yeah, I've got some money, I'm going to go out and buy something. It's not necessarily something that they want or need, but it's, no, I'm going to get that.
Yeah.
I need it. I need to spend it.
I think my mum often says, money burns a hole in my pocket.
Yes. Yeah. You've also got kind of the like older ones who would click submit to that assignment in university or things like that before they've kind of reviewed what they've done. So they've gone and they've, whacked out this whole report. They haven't checked it over for spelling mistakes or whether they've included everything. It's just, I've done it, in. And then afterwards they go, no, I should probably have checked for spelling mistakes, so I should probably check that I answered that question completely.
Yeah, like reading through their answers before they've done. I think other things as well, and I think quite a nice one, and actually I kind of relate a little bit to this, is sort of like grabbing a snack before dinner. So grabbing something to eat, and sort of impulsive eating potentially as well, sort of like it's in front of you, just grabbing it and having it before actually thinking about, am I hungry, or do I really need that, or when's sort of dinner coming, that sort of thing. So sometimes it can be that aspect too. So I think as well, sort of some challenges that come with impulsivity, sort of what things, I think, just, we got seagulls out. I don't know if you can
We're at the seaside.
I don't know if you can hear the seagulls. Apologies for that.
Now it's very easily distracted. It's the impulsive, seagulls.
Oh, a seagull. So yeah, in terms of the challenges that come with that, potentially sort of things like your emotional regulation, so quick to temper and frustration and stuff like that as well.
You've also got the trouble with that social interaction side of things, so speaking without thinking.
You forget that I'm on a podcast.
Yeah. Or taking those like risky behaviours. So you might see the older ones like driving like fast and things like that, or doing lots of big spending because it's giving them that dopamine hit, particularly like with those ADHD behaviours and things like that, or making just unsafe choices because they're quite impulsive with what they decide to do, and they're not thinking through in the moment what the repercussions of that would be.
100%. So I think now what we'll do is we'll sort of hand over to Eleanor, who shortly will sort of talk about impulsive thoughts and intrusive thoughts, because I think that's a nice sort of carry on, because I think, again, it is quite difficult, because in terms of sort of taking those risky behaviours and thinking about doing those risky behaviours, where does that fall? Is that an impulsive thought? Is that an intrusive thought? So I think Eleanor can touch quite nicely on that, and we can continue going with her.
So we have got Eleanor here. She is one of our lovely developmental therapists, and she has come to talk to us about intrusive versus impulsive thoughts. So hi Eleanor, welcome to our podcast.
Hi.
Do you want to tell us a little bit kind of about your background and what you do at Bibic?
Yeah, so obviously, like I said, I am now one of the developmental therapists, but previously I have trained as a secondary school geography teacher, and through that decided that actually I like focusing more on the one-to-one support and supporting people in thriving, and that's how we kind of landed here at Bibic.
Yeah.
What is it about Bibic that you particularly like?
I think I like, well, all of it obviously, but working with the children and seeing them even changing throughout the day once they get comfortable is really nice, and then checking in throughout the key working it's all a really lovely journey that it's just really nice to be a part of.
I love that. So more recently you've been doing some research, haven't you, on difference between impulsive and intrusive thoughts. So do you want to sort of go into a little bit about the difference and sort of why there's a difference?
Yes, so impulsive thoughts typically are those shorter, not quite distressing thoughts. They're just kind of things that pop into your head, like, oh, I might cut the hair, and I might, have a little, what would happen if I jumped into the pool right now, and things like that, where there's not really high stakes for it.
I did that yesterday actually.
Yeah.
we were having an IT guy in, and he opened up a computer and there was lots of dust.
Yeah.
And I looked at the dust and thought, I just really want to blow this dust right now.
Well, one of my partner's friends over the weekend walked into their boyfriend's room with a spoonful of hot chocolate powder, kind of looked at it and blew it all over the room. Just pure impulse. There wasn't very much thought behind it. But an intrusive thought is a little bit more distressing. It's something that you don't actually want to do, and it's more around the kind of high stakes. Impulsive thoughts are short-lasting and infrequent, whereas intrusive thoughts happen regularly. They're almost that obsessive, and they're linked highly with things like OCD, and there is a bit of a difference there. So you don't actually want to follow through with your intrusive thoughts, but your brain will keep repeating repetitively, kind of thinking it through and over again, having those same thoughts.
So when we're saying like on social media, like they come up on my like Instagram and things like that all the time, or here's my intrusive thoughts, and it's like jumping into the pool or knocking something over and things like that. That's not actually a good representation of what impulsive and intrusive thoughts are.
Yeah, I think there was a trend going around not too long ago of intrusive thoughts leading to people cutting their hair, and they were really nice haircuts, to be honest, that were happening in class. But it's more of that impulsive, it's not those high stakes. No. People are doing it and it's funny and it's okay to have a giggle, and some impulsive thoughts can feel a little bit riskier if they're more in line with that ADHD, can feel a little bit riskier, but they don't tend to be distressing, which is the main kind of difference, I think. Okay. But yeah, there's lots of trends on the kind of intrusive versus impulsive.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of mixed representation.
Yeah. And I think we all get impulsive thoughts from time to time, don't we?
Well, I was going to say, because we had, you did a skill session with us, didn't you, all on sort of, I think the focus was OCD, but we then delved into intrusive and impulsive thoughts. And I think I asked a question, wasn't I, if you're driving in a car and then all of a sudden you feel like that you just want to swerve or something like that, and we were deciding whether that was classed as an impulsive thought or an intrusive thought, because again, you were saying there's sometimes a lot of stigma around the intrusive thought because it can make the individual feel quite bad. And
there's a huge level of guilt that comes with it, because obviously they can be very, very distressing, they can be very high level, and the person unlikely to actually feel that way or to actually want to do those things, that they feel guilty. There's a lot of shame around it, and they don't want to tell people because of that shame. They don't want to be judged. So yeah, having open conversations about intrusive or impulsive thoughts can be healthy in that respect. And also sometimes when you say an impulsive thought out loud, it then gets rid of it a little bit more. So, there's always
You get that element of being able to think it through afterwards as well, don't you? Like, oh, that's the impulsive thought. Like you said about driving along as well. Mine's always
everyone's done it.
mine's always pulling on the handbrake, even though I know full well that would not end well. And you're just driving and you go, what would happen? Like, you know what would happen. Let's not do that.
I've got one of those electric handbrakes, and I've done this. I've done it when I get I pull up somewhere and I pull it too soon. It's like it slams the brakes on.
Mine's opening the car door
on the motorway.
Busy roads.
Yeah, all of those things, and I think they are impulsive thoughts that everyone has from time to time. And I think what I'm taking from what you've said is the intrusive thoughts are very repetitive and can have quite a darker theme than these impulsive thoughts.
Yeah, the intrusive thoughts, you tend to want or need to do something to get rid of them, which is then how it leads to the obsessive behaviours, which you often see with OCD. Whereas an impulsive thought, it comes and it goes. You think it, and then you're finished with it, you're done with the day. Whereas somebody who's got these intrusive thoughts will probably be thinking it over and over and thinking about it throughout the day.
Because I was going to ask, in terms of sort of intrusive thoughts and impulsive thoughts, the correlation between things like neurodiversities or divergence, so mainly in terms of divergence with sort of ADHD, autism, those sort of things. Because I think as well, our whole podcast, you've probably listened, you're one of our avid listeners.
I like listening to it in the car.
We've been talking about sort of executive functioning, the crossovers and things like that. So is there quite a common correlation with having intrusive thoughts as part of neurodivergence, or do you think a lot of the time it's more impulsivity, which then sometimes gets wrongly sort of
labelled
as intrusive thoughts?
So I think more often than not they're probably impulsive thoughts because of the executive functioning and that huge crossover, like you've kind of spoken about. But that's not to say people with neurodivergence can't then get those intrusive thoughts as well. They can still have, those crossovers, those comorbidities. What may happen is when there's high dysregulation and high stress, the more you think on thoughts, it may then turn into a bit of an intrusive, a bit of a obsessive thought, rather than just being an impulsive. But often than not, it will be just that impulsive, think it and then it's gone moment, rather than anything too deep. And it's having those conversations about it and understanding it and talking to the people around you to know what kind of thought it is, because there is a little bit of a grey area with some of them, and it's always okay to ask and explore it, because then it might be a case of actually it was just a funny little thought that came into my head, or actually no, this is something that has been reoccurring for a long time, and actually then you can put in the support after that.
It's not having that stigma around it, isn't it, and having those open conversations like you say.
I think that's really an important thing to say, because I think a lot of the time as well, like, we laugh and we make jokes about sort of impulsive thoughts because they are funny, because sometimes they are very silly things, but also I think it's important what you said is sometimes those impulsive thoughts can turn into intrusive thoughts, but it doesn't mean that every impulsive thought is intrusive, and actually there shouldn't be any judgment or stigma around sort of what we think. And yes, we can have a laugh about these things and the things that we think, but actually sometimes expressing those things actually is the most helpful thing in the world anyway.
Because also, even if it's just an impulsive thought, just having a giggle about it is actually quite nice. It's quite funny, and it just, again, it doesn't make you feel as well, because I know with a few of the people who were obsessed, they've spoken about their impulsive thoughts, and they've become a little bit upset because why have they got these things that just jump in their heads all the time, and actually breaking it down and talking to them about it, makes them suddenly go, oh yeah, that was quite funny actually.
That's okay.
And then because it's just a nice part of communication and just chatting about things. And
and I think it's also like not feeling alone, isn't it? Sort of like you can probably everyone has impulsive thoughts. So if someone expresses that they've had an impulsive thought and you can relate to that, like I think probably most people I've talked about have spoke about, like you just said, opening the car door when you're driving.
Yeah.
So it makes it, it has less weight to it on your sort of your mind and things like that. Just to finish us off, do you have any sort of strategies or recommendations that you would suggest to a family or a young individual that has sort of impulsivity and things like that?
So in terms of impulsivity or impulsive thought?
Or go.
So obviously I think talking about it is going to be one of the biggest ones for me. I think also grounding techniques and just getting that practice of being back in the moment to try and get yourself out of your head and then just giving yourself that room to breathe and think things through before actually doing it. And also it's just quite a nice way of reflecting on why did I do that? Okay. Or why should I have done that? No, I shouldn't have done that. Or
Yeah.
I think as well, she just touched on a good question. What is the difference between impulsivity and impulsive thoughts? Gone.
Well, impulsivity, I would say, is then doing the impulsive thought. So the impulsive thought might be, I'm going to knock your water bottle off the table. My impulsivity might then make me knock it off the table. So it's, I think...
So you're saying cats are quite impulsive then?
Yeah. I've got a little string of ADHD about a little bit of executive functioning difficulties going through,
Isn't there a book on that? It's something like My Cat's Got...
I think there's a book called All Cats Have Autism or something.
Oh, yeah, that's it. And then All Dogs Have ADHD or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying impulsivity is the doing.
Yeah.
Impulsive thoughts is just thinking about it.
That's what I would say.
Okay.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much for coming on,
That's
Eleanor.
all right, thank you, anytime.
Yeah, brilliant.
Amazing.
Thank you for Eleanor for coming on and explaining the differences between those two. I think it's been really helpful to just distinguish the definitions between them. So we're going to be moving on to strategies on how you can support that impulsivity. We offer things like the wait for go for impulsivity. So this is training for that pause. Almost with them. You would start off with, oh, Natalie, you would like a biscuit. So Natalie wants a biscuit. And I would put the biscuit in front of her and I'd be like, wait for go. And she's looking very excited, like I actually have a biscuit. And I do not have a biscuit.
I feel like we're very foodie people.
It's always food, isn't it? So I would put the biscuit down, so wait for go, and the go would happen pretty quickly because remember we're talking about children, this would work for, that are very impulsive. Yeah. So they're going to pick up that biscuit and they're going to eat it as soon as you give it to them.
Yeah.
My son included. But the aim of this is to extend that time. So you're getting them to wait for that verbal cue before they can act on what they want to do. So wait for go. And each time when they can achieve that, I'm going to extend that time, so they have to cue in and they have to listen and they don't act impulsively for it.
Yeah, and you might also want to sort of bring in sort of breaths into that, so you can, again, if they're potentially they might be quite impulsive in talking and interrupting, it might be sort of saying, when they're just about to sort of go, you can go, okay, 3 breaths, and then they can go. So it's just encouraging that opportunity to slow down, I think, as well, and take that time to just think about what potentially they want to talk about. I think also sometimes maybe sort of practicing, talking about sort of self-talking and slowing down, sort of practicing that sort of self-talk side of things. So teaching phrases like, is this a good idea, or what happens if I do this? So again, sort of thinking about potentially the outcome of what sort of potentially they're about to do.
Yeah, and modelling that behaviour with them as well, because it's all about this understanding for them, particularly young children need to see, if they are impulsive, that these are things that you can do. And if the adults in their life are modelling this and talking it through themselves, it's going to be much easier for them to take those strategies on board rather than go, you need to do this. Because as we know, a lot of children will just go, no. So if you're modelling that, I think it will come a bit easier.
Definitely. And I think also, especially going into sort of like ADHD, I think individuals with ADHD they tend to not learn until they've done it, because the thought tends to sit there and it tends to be sort of like, what if? And I think also we spoke about previously sort of the mind being kind of tailored to do sort of the wrong thing or the negative thing. And I think sometimes, again, this is where it's very difficult with sort of neurodivergence and neurodiversities, because again, actually, sometimes they find themselves in the moment doing the wrong thing, and they often will get picked up on that. So don't do this, or stop doing that, or go over there and do something else, stop talking, sit down.
It's quite negative, isn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes it can be really difficult, because it is that impulsivity that's often is the sort of fundamental kickstart into them doing those things.
Yeah.
I know I worked with individuals before where it's sort of, they always tend to find themselves, I think there was a scenario a long time ago where an individual went into a library and he went on the computers and he quickly clicked on to go onto a game instead of his research, and he was immediately sort of told, stop doing that and out the library because we don't do that. But actually, again, we talked about previously about that redirecting them and re-prompting them into the more appropriate things, because again, brain plasticity, the ability to learn from what we're doing, they have to have the opportunity to do that.
And I think, like, with neurodivergence, particularly like ADHD, it can take almost a big mistake for them to learn from it.
Yes.
So they have to experience what's going to happen in order for that impulsivity to subside.
Yeah.
So I know once when I was a child, you know those, they were cigarette lighters that you used to push in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to touch one.
I've done that, and you get like a little
You get
round.
the little, yeah. And I was told multiple times that it was going to hurt. Don't touch it. It will hurt.
I think the worst thing I've ever done is stuck my finger into a fan. There was a fan in front of me. It was whirring round, and it just would not go.
No.
So I stuck my finger in that fan, and I've never stuck my finger in a fan again.
I was going to say, you learned. It was a big enough consequence, wasn't it?
I often look at a fan and think, I wonder what would happen if I stuck, and then I go, no.
Learned from that mistake. Yeah.
So I think, again, and even with the older ones, especially with impulsivity and ADHD and dopamine and all those aspects, which again, I think I keep touching on when, next season or another episode, but we will probably go into a little bit more in depth when we do a season on ADHD, but we often talk about sort of risk management and sort of extreme risks and stuff like that, and sort of building those clear boundaries and expectations, but allowing an opportunity to try and learn. And I think, again, you have to be very careful and tactical with sort of what you're choosing, but also providing that safe space for them to do so, because sometimes they have to learn through doing themselves. And I'm not turning around, no way am I turning around to say, let your child stick fingers in fans and touch the cigarette lighter. But because that's just probably something they're doing.
No, because you do want to protect them from that, don't you?
Yeah.
But they are going to do some daft things. Like even younger ones who do not have any neurodivergent traits at all, because this executive functioning is developing until the age of 25, they are going to make some impulsive and possibly stupid thoughts and actions, because that's how they are learning, and it's going to develop over time.
And I think as well with executive functioning, we spoke about sort of how it develops and how long it takes. So even sort of it's not fully formed and developed until 25, and that potential sort of disparity in terms of its development, so 3 to 5 years. So I think as well, it's allowing the opportunities for impulsivity without the negative response. And I think where we can redirect and re-guide those individuals is going to be sort of the best way forward, because the more we can redirect them, the more they'll learn.
Yeah, I think that's key. I mean, other things that you can do to support that is the reward delayed gratification. So playing games like Simon Says, or like those musical statues, where they almost have to fight against that impulsivity, and then they can get that kind of reward at the end of it if they can do it. And it's going to take a lot of practice, because they are going to be those ones where the music stops and they keep on dancing.
And I think also, again, it's praising the effort rather than the outcome. So praising their ability to attempt to not interrupt. So if they have put their hand up in the class and they're the child going ooh, 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 with their hand up in the air, praising them for attempting to wait their turn. And again, if they've sort of come to interrupt your conversation and they've kind of run up and they've skidded and then they're going, and they're holding it, praising them for that attempt, because again, each time they attempt, the skill will get stronger and they will be able to sort of hold themselves a little bit longer each time. Yeah,
it's skills that will be developed, and I think taking it each day as it comes, making sure that you've got those boundaries in place, like Nat said, making sure that you're praising that effort rather than the outcome, because there are going to be so many times where they will just go, oh, I wasn't meant to say that. Or, oh, sorry, you were talking, I've interrupted you, or they've done something. But if we can praise what they have done well, make sure that they hear all that positive language, they are going to learn and they are going to develop.
Well, we are through another episode again of the podcast, so I think we're really grateful for everyone listening, as always, and sticking with us and dealing with my cold.
As always, if you would like to follow, I'll put my teeth back in, follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook and things like that. If you just type in Bibic, we will come up. Please do have a look at our website. If there's any services that you would like, drop us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
It's my turn to say the email address.
Yeah, please
today.
Do. Yeah.
thesensationallife@bibic.org.uk. We're getting it.
We're getting it. It's a bit of a mouthful. But yeah, thank you for listening. And as always, keep it sensational.